Is Cyberpunk 2077 the next-gen experience we've been waiting for on PS5 and Xbox Series X? Or is it still a poorly running, buggy mess? Let's get into it. How's it going? HonestToCritic here with my first impressions for Cyberpunk 2077. And boy, have I been waiting a long time to play this game. Because unlike a lot of people who just rush out to buy the game, I understood, logic dictated, that this game was very ambitious. It was being worked on during a pandemic, and it was not likely to come out in the best state. And even with all the controversy, of course, they didn't send any early, any early versions to, reviewers or the journalists to see for the console versions, especially the PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah, I didn't need to hear all that to know this game was not going to be ready. It was not going to be in the best shape at launch. So when I heard there was a next-gen version coming, that was going to be my go-to no matter what. Everything else just fell in place because I was going to wait anyway. But here I am now, finally able to speak on the game from a perspective of someone who has never played the game, has not seen the bugs. Well, we've all seen the bugs. If you've been on Twitter at all, on any type of social media, we've seen the bugs, but I have not experienced them myself, and I can walk into this new version basically fresh, with a fresh mindset, and tell you exactly what I think. So, here we go. Now, is this game next gen? Does it blow your mind when you look at these graphics? How's the performance? Well, graphically, it is a hit or miss. It is very clean looking. It can be very detailed at times, but at other times it could lack some detail. Some textures could look a little, less detailed than I would like. It definitely has moments. There's a lot of moments where it does look and feel next gen, and the frame rate getting into performance definitely helps because it is a very stable 60 frames. Playing in performance mode is pretty stable. Now we do have a ray tracing mode, but if you've watched Digital Foundry, it's not really much of a benefit. Indoors you see a bigger difference, but outdoors is not as much of a difference, and it's not full ray traced, it's only shadows. So I really would recommend you play performance mode. I did obviously check out the ray tracing mode, and yeah, it's hard to go back. Your eyes do adjust. At first it looks very kind of like a blur when you move around, but your eyes will adjust, and there'll be less of a problem. But it's not really worth the pay. It's not much of a payoff, and it does look much cleaner, especially in motion in that performance mode. So getting that out of the way, what do I like about the game? So far, the most impressive thing about the game is the city itself, the immersion. And I especially give credit to it being first person because you have a lot of these cinematic moments where you sit down and you're chatting with people, and there's a lot of systems in place to where when you look over at the person you're talking to, you might get a different line of dialogue for one person. You look at another person, you get another line of dialogue, which I thought was really a cool system. I don't know why they choose to use the square button for confirming. I think you can use the X button as well, but you use the square buttons for like everything instead of X, which is just one of those minor gripes. I'm just used to using X on most RPGs or those type of games. But yeah, it's very immersive to the point where, sadly, I have to report, you still run into bugs here and there. Now, I've only played maybe the first 5, 6, maybe I'm drawing close to 10 hours now. So I don't think I'm super far into the game. I've been taking it pretty slow because I am very much immersed in the city. I'm looking around and just kind of just like living in there. But yeah, I'll just put it up. As you can see, I have run into situations where right here, I'm just trying to avoid a fight and I'm running away, and I jump into my car to try to drive away, and once again, we see that bug where I'm falling through the ground, and I'm falling through the ground, and it's loading up, and I'm falling through the ground again. And we've seen this before, it's still in the game. I've had bugs where the controller will start shaking, it won't stop shaking, even though whatever caused it to shake is over. It just continues to shake. Characters being out of place, where maybe they're supposed to be wearing something, but for some reason the thing they're supposed to be wearing is floating in front of them instead of them wearing it, or they're sitting in a place they're not supposed to be sitting, they're just kind of floating. And I gotta say, this hasn't happened much, right? I've seen these examples happen much more in the older versions of the game. It happened to me only maybe once or twice. I've only had the glitch once so far, where I fell through the ground, which I just displayed. But overall, it can be very immersion breaking because you are very immersed in this city to the point where I want to say this would make for quite the amazing VR experience. Like, it being completely first person, the way everything is set up, it almost feels like it has VR in mind. Like, in the future they want to make a VR version of Cyberpunk, and wow, wouldn't that be something, right? To see this world, to be in the world of Cyberpunk with a VR headset, that would be kind of amazing. But moving on from that, what else should we speak on? Let's see. Oh, of course, you can expect to come across other characters besides Keanu Reeves, which we know is in the game. You could expect, as you can see, to come across some other Easter egg characters, and quite funny ones as well. But yeah, overall the game is pretty heavy into the RPG aspects, to the point where it's very overwhelming when you first jump in, because they don't I'm used to RPGs having explanations for their menus and everything, and I don't know if it's bugged, but when I opened up my menus, first I got no notice that my menu was available. Most RPGs will tell you and walk you through your menus, but none of that happened. And the reason why I say it might be bugged is because I did see some gameplay from earlier versions where some tutorials were popping up, and they didn't seem to pop up when I was playing the game in this newer version. So I don't know if my tutorials were just bugged and didn't pop up. I don't know what's going on there, but like, I'll give you an example. In the car scene, I didn't get a tutorial popping up telling you how to, to aim out the window, to shoot, all that, but I've seen earlier gameplay from the other versions where it shows you a tutorial at that moment. So I don't know what's going on there, but keep that in mind that maybe some of the tutorials might be bugged. And speaking of other bugs, but not really a bug, are the controls. Because when I first jumped into the little training VR, or BD as they call it, right? It was very hard to control, like, your aim. Like, aiming down sight, it was very fast, very loose, Like, it reminded me of a lot of games that used to come in the past that were PC-centric games that were not fitted to a controller, and they felt very loose and very, yeah, just very fast and loose. And I literally, I just recommend you just look up a video on how to set up your controls and maybe explain how the controls work, because the settings are very kind of weird. You have like very fast rotating where it has momentum and it might pick up the spin when you look around. Then you have to set your vertical and horizontal sensitivity to a certain way for you to aim, but then you have to go to a different one to set your turning. And like, and it's not, that might seem like it's a normal way, but it's not labeled the way you would expect in the menus. I don't want to get into it. It was kind of a headache. But the game so far is pretty damn fun, and it's very what's the word? It's very cinematic, to the point where I'm very much enjoying the story over the gameplay more than anything. Because if I'm being honest, the gameplay is really just a mix of a lot of familiar, you know, games we've already played before. It's it feels like a touch of hacking from Watch Dogs. It feels like it has some RPG aspects from a bunch of different popular RPGs that we all know and love. It's a mix of a lot of things, to the point where it feels overly familiar. Like, when you play, the gameplay is overly familiar, and the shooting itself feels, I guess, a little bit like the weapon system and the shooting feel a little bit like Borderlands in a way. But yeah, that's all I got, since I've only played, you know, the first few 6 to 8 hours maybe, and so far I'm enjoying it. I mean, is it this revolutionary game that I'm going to compare to Witcher and just be like, oh, I'm disappointed so far? No, because really, I don't know how anyone can look at this game and really just compare it to The Witcher. They're such different games, and they offer such a different experience. But like, the writing is still there. It still feels very natural. It has an even more cinematic feeling, you know, to the cutscenes and the moments where you're in first person and you're just speaking to people. You know, it's very much in the vein of a kind of a more freestyle cinematic game, because it's not putting you into a cutscene all the time. It's letting you play, and it's putting you in these situations that just feel very cinematic. But that's all I got. Let me know what you guys think about Cyberpunk, if you're playing it now for the first time, if you started the game before and are now maybe trying it out again because of the patch or the new version, right? And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and this has been HonestToCritic, as always saying, if you're going to be a critic, be honest, and catch you next time.